listening to episode 31 of the Comics Pals. We're a group of comic book journalists and friends who decided to do a podcast together because we don't talk enough about comics in our daily lives.
I'm not happy, mean Sean Oakland. Yeah, I'm not happy. Nothing means nothing, Sean. Unjustifiably in a place I'd rather not be in. Yeah, and I even had my cup of coffee, These little men over on the long box didn't even know that Macho Madness existed. They don't even know what the Macho Man sounds like. And they say we don't read comics, mean Sean Okerlund. Not only that, but they don't realize that we are the comics. Yeah. We're putting the Inter-Podcast Comic Championship back on the map. And we are the cream. And the cream will always rise to the top. Yeah. We are the most sweatiest men on the podcast interwebs. Not only that, but we are the most dog pettingest too. On balance, off balance, it doesn't matter. Because we'll always beat them at Injustice 2. Yeah. Because we are the 5-star podcast.
What the fuck was that?
Thank you, Phil.
First of all, I didn't understand half the words you just said, at least.
That's how you cut a promo. I've got the Macho Madness kill, and you don't know what to do.
You don't speak Savage, Macho Man Randy Savage?
No. This week I've only been speaking Archie.
Okay, so for those of you who are unaware of what the hell is happening on this show that we like to call the Comics Pals, Phil is responding to Matt Murphy from the Long Box Podcast, who attempted to cut a promo on us on their most recent episode. If you would like to hear that, for whatever reason, you should go check them out, the Long Box Podcast. See, here's the deal, and I'm not going to address this for too long, but I do have a few words. I like those guys. I'm a fan of those guys. And they chose to take their aggressions towards Phil, who is the heel of this show, out on all 5 of us and our 5-star rating, which is legit, for which we are very proud. Thank you, Matt. And I didn't appreciate that too much. So, as a result, we had to unleash Phil. And if this is to continue, then we're going to have to settle this one way or another. And I do have a suggestion if it must come to that. And that suggestion is called Injustice 2. So, you guys can let me know with your response on your next episode whether or not this is squashed now, or we have to settle this in the video game.
In the ring!
The ears of the world turn upon you, Longbox Podcast. What you gonna do about it? Slap it to a Slim Jim!
Hashtag not an ad.
So, if you would like to tell us that you'd like to see this showdown, you can reach out to us all over the internet. You can hit us up on iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. We are a 5-star rated podcast. Very, very proud of that indeed, and always will be. You can also find us on SoundCloud. We're very happy to be there. And all the other podcast hosting platforms. We are all over social media at The Comics Pals. You can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com. And YouTube, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave a comment. You can like the video and subscribe to the channel, which really helps us out. Those shares are super important. Let people know that we are here and that you enjoy what we do so we can bring more pals into the fold. So, it's been a pretty good, interesting week in the comic book world. I'm really excited to talk some Wonder Woman today. We're going to dive into Wonder Woman. Her movie's coming out really soon. So that's exciting. But before we get into all that stuff, I do want to ask you guys how your week has been and what's been going on. Pete, you want to set us off?
Sure, man. Much like you, I spent the better part of this week very sick, so not too much to report. But I am very much looking forward to our main topic this week because I think, as I've made well known on this show, I've never really been much of a DC guy.
No, you?
I read my... No, I know, right? Biggest DC fan on the internet. But I've read my first 2 Wonder Woman books, and I loved them, and I can't wait to talk about them.
Cool. I do want to ask, since I did leave my copy of Injustice at your house, has it been used, and how are you and everyone else enjoying my game?
It has been being used. I've been doing a little bit of some of the online stuff, and then just battling people, like locally. And it's a ton of fun. I really love the game, and I'm getting a lot more comfortable with it, I think, because while it is a lot like Mortal Kombat, it does have a bit of its own flow that took some getting used to. I'm lucky in that the characters that I tend to like and be good with seem to be the ones that are kind of gravitating towards the top of the meta anyway. So that's usually a big problem for me in fighting game. Yeah, the cream is rising to the top, as it were.
Yeah, we get it, Phil.
But yeah, I'm still maining Supergirl, love her a lot, and I want to get a little bit more comfortable with Swamp Thing, because I like the way he plays, but he's not quite in my wheelhouse. I'm not usually as good with the slower characters that require a little more planning.
No one truly gets comfortable with Swamp Thing. Just ask Marco.
Wow. Okay, cool. So, Phil, I know you also play Injustice and have been playing it. Are you enjoying it still?
I didn't get a lot of time to play it this week, but last night I took like 3 hours to play it, and I was like looking for that for a while. Like ever since I bought the game, I was like, I need a night where I can just, I could nestle a nice little ash cushion in for myself, where like the cushion recognizes the imprint of my butt cheeks because I've been sitting there for so long, and play this game. And I mean, I'm like 6 chapters into the story, and the story is pretty good. The dialogue is real silly, but I'm pretty sure Superman is still my main. I got Darkseid and Brainiac though, and Darkseid is a lot of fun to play as.
Awesome. So when we do go to Philly for Wizard World, which is next week, by the way, and we will be doing a lot of coverage there, so you guys can stay tuned for all that stuff. But when we are there and we aren't working, there's going to be some play, right? We're gonna play some Injustice too.
Oh, are you kidding me? We gotta settle your fucking rivalry, man. If you guys didn't tune into last week's episode, or you listened to the audio-only version and didn't see the main topic, which was our first ever Let's Play of Injustice 2, it unfortunately ended mid-bout. So we've gotta settle the tiebreaker, man.
You down, Phil?
Yeah, we have to crown a new Inter-Podcast Comics champion.
Battle Royale round 2, baby.
Sounds good. And if you guys do want to see more of that stuff and you enjoyed it, let us know. I already shouted out all the ways you can do that, but definitely do let us know. Kale, how about you? What's been going on, man?
I've got nothing to report.
That's not even true.
Kale just doesn't want to talk about the fact he's been watching Riverdale.
Oh, right. I did have a whole bit. All right. Oh, well. Yeah. Murphy and I are planning to do a review of Riverdale. We're hoping to release it maybe around the time of the second season premiere. And so I'm about halfway through. I committed myself, and it's all I've been watching. And the fact that I'm only halfway through really shows how great I am at watching TV. But man, this show, my opinion has not changed. But now that it's all I've been watching, it's like all I can think about.
This is the worst.
I got in a fight with my boss last night at work, and I immediately went to Riverdale, like in the middle, like mid-argument, like my head was just elsewhere.
What the hell?
You went to Riverdale.
Yeah.
Listeners, I'm worried for this man's like mental security, mental status. I'm worried that he's literally going to drift into Riverdale in a Twilight Zone-esque like drift.
Can we just address the lie real quick though? Kale said that now that he's watching Riverdale, it's all he can think about. I believe that it's always been all he can think about.
Yeah, oh my god, it's just always been there.
You're always on my mind.
I do have one maybe contentious thing to say, though.
About Riverdale?
No.
No.
Tangentially related. Cole Sprouse plays Jughead, right? From The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Yeah.
All grown up. I'd like to see him play Terry McGinnis in a Batman Beyond film.
That's interesting.
Because Jughead, he's not the comic relief in this show. If anything, he's like the angsty, emo, like overly emotional character.
And they call him Jughead.
That's his name. That's the name of the character.
Yeah.
I know the name of the character, but like this emo, angsty boy, well, that's his Jughead. You know what I mean?
I got nothing there, Phil. You got me.
He was an idiot kid, man. And that's why he's emo.
But he has this real, like, you know, Terry McGinnis hanging out with the on the rough side of the tracks, breaking into Bruce Wayne's. I don't remember how Terry McGinnis got the Batman Beyond costume, actually.
No, please tell us how that happened.
So he broke into.
Tell us how you remember it.
He broke into Bruce Wayne's house, right? And he found out that he was Batman. He stole Dick Grayson's like 3-piece suit. I remember that.
I think you're spot on so far.
And then he finds the Batcave, and he says, "Oh, that's a Batman."
He does, yeah. He was very Italian for a scene.
Whoa, that's a spicy Batman.
So this is kind of random, but do you guys think we'll ever see a Batman Beyond movie?
No.
I don't know about never.
I think that movie that did you guys watch that YouTube video I posted? I think it was yesterday about like where superhero movies can go after Logan.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to watch that yet. I saw you posted that on our Twitter though.
So it's basically like if Logan is like, if it's like the last of like a generation of superhero movies that are just like superhero movies, and we're like as tired of them as we say we are, where does the genre go?
So, you know, I just watched Logan last night, actually. I watched the noir version. And I watched this, and I'm like, this is where these things should be moving toward. One writer, one director, and more intimate storytelling. I mean, that's not where most of these are going to go, but that's like the logical progression. This is more meaningful stories.
So, yeah, so what I'm getting at is that, like, a Batman Beyond would be an interesting move in that direction, I think.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment, man. I honestly think that, and granted, this would be like years and years away, but say we have another really good trilogy of Batman movies, right? And we come to love a new actor as Batman in the same way that we have attachment to, and maybe not the exact same way because Hugh Jackman is special and that he's been playing Wolverine for like forever, you know? Like what, 15 years or something like that. But even more than that actually. But I think if we had a similar relationship to a Batman who then was like an older actor, you know, like if Ben Affleck had stuck with Batman and we had 3 great Batfleck films, we love Ben Affleck as Batman, and then
Adam West.
That could work pretty well. But yeah, an actor who we associate with Batman in that way, playing old Bruce, and then we have this new young blood. I think that could totally work. I think that could totally have the same resonance as a movie like Logan. I'm totally with you, Kale.
The thing about Logan that works so well isn't necessarily the fact that this has been an actor that's portraying the character for 15 straight years. It helps.
Oh, I think that's a huge part of the equation. I don't think it works without that.
Yeah, I agree.
No, because I know people that like aren't even super familiar with it, and I think the movie stands on its own, honestly, because the quality of acting and like the things that are like, it's not just Hugh Jackman that's amazing in that movie. Like, I mean, the X-23 character is exceptional.
Even Patrick Stewart does a great job with what little he has.
It's a story about like fathers and like children and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Well, but it's
because like I saw it with my friend last night who's never seen the original X-Men movies, and he fucking loved it. It's like his favorite movie.
I don't disagree with you that it stands on its own at all because it's just a well executed film.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think to have a Batman Beyond movie have resonance, it would kind of need to have that to a degree. But I think your point about Adam West, that would work just fine in my mind.
So like one thing this video points out is that like Logan uses like the superhero vehicle but it adds the Western. It uses the Western themes and and it's very much. While it's a superhero movie, it's also a Western at heart. I think one thing you could do with like a Batman Beyond movie is you can make it like Blade Runner or something.
That's what I was thinking.
Like a dark, seedy sort of
like dystopian kind of future.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily like
cyberpunk, like
neo future, maybe.
I feel like all those things are very present in Batman Beyond as well.
Yeah.
So I think that vibe would really work. Who does Blade Runner? What's the director?
Ridley Scott.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
It's Ridley Scott, Harrison Ford.
Ridley Scott could probably do a pretty sick Batman Beyond movie.
He's not much of a director anymore.
He's not. Judging by the Alien Covenant reviews, I don't know.
I think when it comes to comic book movies, it's probably fair to say that all of these studios have become obsessed with the appeal of the formula, but also the connectivity. And, comic book fans know that some of the best stories ever told are actually standalone. And
I would argue most.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that argument. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And on screen, we haven't really seen as many of those movies. That even when you're talking about like a trilogy, they're still beholden to what came before. Logan isn't in a lot of ways. It makes reference to, but isn't reverent to the past. And I think that that's an important element of that film. And so a Batman Beyond movie, I think, would be able to do a similar thing. But you could do it with any character as long as you made a point to not connect it so much to a wider universe. So I think that there's a great chance that we could see these kind of movies in the future, in a large part due to Logan's success.
As I've said many times before, anything could be good.
You're trash. I agree with you, Sean. I think the only issue with Batman Beyond is that it is kind of inherently built upon the bones of something else. Like, that's what it is, Like, and I feel like it is one specific property that I think it definitely benefits from you having baggage with Batman, with Bruce, before you come into that movie or that universe.
You start Star Wars with Luke Skywalker and old Ben Kenobi. You don't know anything about Ben Kenobi, but pop culture knows plenty about Bruce Wayne and Batman. You can do this movie without any context because the movie isn't about Bruce Wayne. It's about Terry McGinnis.
Not to mention that I think the context that's required can come from the movie itself. Here's this.
That's a good point.
I think there's a lot of ways to pull that off in a graceful way without requiring too much from the viewer.
You know what? Actually, yeah, I'm gonna double back on that. I'm with you because you know how they solved that? They give you what was it, the 2006 Hulk movie or whatever, 2008, where it's like you just opening credits show the moment that makes Batman retire or whatever. We pick up Batman's old man. Terry's going into the Batcave. Let's go.
I mean, yeah, that's the first 5 minutes of Batman Beyond. Like,
right?
Yeah, and a lot of people watch that show without watching the animated series. Like, there were kids that just came in.
That I don't agree with that at all. I think that's
I watched Batman Beyond as a kid without watching the animated series. I was too young to watch the animated series.
You've never watched Batman the animated series?
Not as a kid. I was too young.
That's crazy. Your parents were robbing you of a really important experience.
I watched it when I was a teenager. I came back and bought the DVDs, but like when Batman Beyond came on, I was like 8 years old, and that was like my first foray into the DC animated universe.
I feel like there's probably not too many people like that, but maybe obviously you're one of them. So,
well, in any event, I would love to see something like that, and I'm hopeful that the future of these movies is trending towards that, at least as a supplement to what we're undoubtedly going to get, which is more crossover.
Yeah, and like we talked about this in 2 episodes ago when Chris Sabella was on, and we talked about superhero fatigue and stuff like that, and like I think it's a problem, but I'd be lying if I said that I was like really bothered by it. I tend to land more on your side of the fence, Sean, where it's like if the movie's good, I like the movie, so it's like I don't think that superheroes as a genre are as susceptible to the kind of bloat and fatigue that, because I think a really common thing, right, is I see a lot of film critics or film historians and stuff make comparisons between the boom of superhero movies and westerns, right? And that like westerns were all encompassing in Hollywood for forever until they weren't, you know, and they just died. Everyone totally lost interest in them. But superheroes are way, 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 way more diverse as a genre. You know, it's like the Guardians of the Galaxy could not be more different than Captain America Winter Soldier. You know, like, and I think that is the way forward for these movies, is realizing that superhero shouldn't be a genre of film. That, like, superheroes can be whatever you need them to be. And, like, there are tropes of a superhero movie, but plenty of really good superhero movies don't follow those tropes, and they're better for it.
See, with I've seen a lot of westerns, and like the only thing that's the same about westerns is the setting. It's the West, but like
that's huge. Like,
not really, because like I mean, it's a setting, but like thematically, a lot of these movies are really different. A movie like John Ford's The Searchers is.
I'm not criticizing westerns though, dude. Like you're right.
I know.
But
that's not my point though. I'm saying that like they're similarly diverse in a way that superhero movies would be. Because the only thing that is, I mean, to say that superhero movies are more diverse than westerns is kind of a misnomer of just like a superficial surface level.
That's not what I said though, Phil. I said that the superheroes as a genre are more diverse than westerns.
Wait. But I know that's why I'm taking umbrage with.
But so with westerns, right, there are some things that are like repetitive that I could see people being ready to move beyond. Like, for example, the setting, right? So if every movie in the Marvel universe was set in space, for instance, people would be over it in 2 seconds. I think that even the diversity of setting is what. Go ahead.
What people got sick of in your general Western was the formula of a general Western. And what people are sick of in the superhero movies is the formula of a generic superhero movie. That's the issue. But there are Western movies that diverge from that, just like there are superhero movies that diverge from that. So for every generic B-list Western movie, there's The Magnificent Seven, there's The Searchers, there's High Noon. And do you
mean for every 10 generic Western movies, there are those couple
for every
of movies?
Generic, well, yeah, but for every 5 generic Marvel movies, there's Logan, there's The Dark Knight.
Yeah, but the key difference there is, like, I really think that you're oversimplifying, like, how different those things are at their core, though, because, the themes of every Western are different, but, like, the setting is always going to be the same. Your protagonist is always going to be generally a white dude. Like, there are a lot of things that, like, and those don't have to be the truths, but, like, you can't necessarily have, like, a spy movie or an espionage movie in the setting of the Old West, because it just doesn't necessarily work that way. You can't have a movie that's a space opera in the West, because it doesn't work that way. You can do those things with superheroes, and, like, that does make... That's the point I'm making. Not that superhero movies are more diverse. I think the point you're making of, like, the formula is still true, but, like, there's a certain limitation you have we're in this time period in this one portion of the world.
The one thing I'm going to say to that is, you're like, every hero is a white dude. I'm like, man, that's every movie from that era.
That's true. And it's not like superhero movies are that much better.
That's fair.
But you do have the option, right? Like, there's a certain, like, you're not going to see a movie about an Asian American sheriff. You know, like, that's just not a thing that's really, like, I guess you could, but it's probably not going to play out that way.
Hey, guys, remember when we were a comics podcast?
Well, I was actually going to say, how about we retroactively make that the random question of the week?
All right. That's fine with me. That works.
I actually wanted to try out something new. I want to play a little game. It's not much of a game. It's more of a question, but it's not a random question. It's buy or sell. So we've all talked about this in the past, but the audience may not be familiar with what this is. So I'll give you the quick rundown. It's very simple. So I will give you 2 options, right? And you will tell me if you want to buy it or sell it. If you buy it, it exists. If you sell it, it never did. Okay? So here's the question, and once I ask it, you'll immediately understand. So buy or sell on the Dark Knight trilogy or the Iron Man trilogy. So if you take one, the other does not exist ever in history. And you have to consider what that would look like if you removed it.
I got you.
This is easy.
Phil, go ahead.
That's the first question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Phil, go ahead.
Buy the Dark Knight trilogy.
Explain.
The Iron Man, the first one's pretty good, but the rest of the Iron movies aren't very good, and I don't really care about the Avengers interconnected shit. So, like, for me, I'd rather have two really good movies, one forgettable movie, and then be done with this very bloated web.
So you would kill the Marvel universe, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the biggest villain of all time.
Surprising no one.
All right. Pete?
Well, I'm going to pick the exact opposite because I think that The Dark Knight is arguably the best superhero movie ever made, but it's not. It's an outlier. Like, it's in the genre, but I don't think it was extremely influential in any way other than that it's fantastic. Like, it's a fantastic movie. I don't like Dark Knight Rises.
It inspired the tone of a bunch of shitty DC momovies after that.
That's true. Yeah, it did do that. So if I got rid of that, maybe we actually have a good DCU now. So that's one thing. But I think Dark Knight Rises is terrible. I really don't think it's a good movie at all. It's really poorly paced. It's a hot mess in a lot of ways. And I think Batman Begins, yeah. It's solid. I like it fine, but if I never saw that movie again, or if I had never seen that movie again, I don't really think that my life would be too much lessened, you know?
You're killing Sean with your comments about Dark Knight Rises, though.
I know, I really hate that movie. Like, that could be an episode in and of itself. I think it's an objectively bad movie.
You ever hear what Nolan said about it before it came out?
No, what?
He said something to the effect of, like, this is the greatest movie since the silent era.
True. Well, I think of all the movies I've seen that he's made, I think it might actually be my least favorite. So, and then for Iron Man, Iron Man 1 is a great movie. I like Iron Man 2 a lot more than the general populace seems to. Iron Man 3 is not good, but it's also not terrible. It's fine. But the importance of the Iron Man trilogy in my mind is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, which I'm a fan of. So you take that away, I don't think you have that. And again, I think the first Iron Man movie is one of the best superhero movies ever made. So, yeah, that's my pick.
That was very reasonable. Kale?
So,
Pete and I laid it out pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I think you both did.
Yeah, point, counterpoint. Kale, where do you fall?
So I'm somewhere in between.
Oh, all right.
I'm going to pick Iron Man 1, The Dark Knight, and Iron Man 3.
Oh, fuck that.
I think I gotta pick Batman. Because while I do dearly, I don't know, I guess I won't say dearly love, but I do love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I think without Batman Begins, I don't think Iron Man would have been as successful. Because, and that's what I was looking up on my phone just a second ago, Batman Begins came out in 2005. Yeah. Iron Man came out in 2008.
But Batman Begins was like a modest success.
Yeah, Batman Begins was like really not a big deal.
Right, but
like, a lot of people saw The Dark Knight without seeing
you
Batman
had your turn.
Alright, whatever.
And I while Batman Begins might have been a modest success, I do think it set a tone for the movies that came after it. And I think even though The Dark Knight Rises was a lot more successful and in a lot of ways and a lot better movie, I think without Batman Begins, I don't think we would have had the generation of movies that have come after it. I think it was really like the forerunner of all that. So I think my answer is Batman Begins.
Your answer is Batman Begins.
The Batman. Yeah, the Batman.
Just Batman Begins.
Only Batman Begins.
I think Iron Man was great, but I think had they started with Doctor Strange in the same way, like had they shown Doctor Strange in 2008, I think we would have gotten the same result.
Yeah, so I'm going to give what's probably going to be a surprising answer. I would choose Iron Man.
I knew it.
That's not surprising.
The Dark Knight is my favorite superhero movie. The Dark Knight is one of my favorite films. I think it's impenetrable. I think Dark Knight Rises is phenomenal. What they put into that movie, whatever. I'm not going to go on a whole soliloquy, but I really love that movie. And Batman.
There should be a Let's Watch of The Dark Knight Rises with Pete and Sean.
Yo, yes.
Sean would literally probably strangle me by the end of it because of how much I would audibly sigh and roll my eyes. That is like the movie I am the most Phil Casey about.
And because it's a 3-hour movie and you'd have to sit through it the whole time.
Yep, it's a 3-hour movie.
To be fair, it probably should have been 2 parts, but I think it's great. Batman Begins.
For an hour shorter.
If you watch the Wisecrack video about what went wrong with The Dark Knight Rises.
I have.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I love Wisecrack.
Yeah, me too, dude. So, and Batman Begins is also phenomenal. So,
fucking go watch Batman Begins and Wisecrack.
Yeah, right. But the Iron Man trilogy to me is not particularly good. I only like Iron Man 1. Iron Man 2 is serviceable. Iron Man 3 was a slap in the face for me. And I know a lot of people, they don't understand why comic book fans who have been invested in comics feel that way, but that's how I feel. I really was hurt. Not hurt. I don't want to over exaggerate, but I didn't like what they did with the Mandarin. It really bothered me. But that being said, I love the Marvel Universe so much, the cinematic universe, and it's so intrinsic in my life now, these movies. I wait for them with bated breath. They're a highlight of my year every year. And they've introduced so many new people into what it is that we love. And in many ways, it's opened up new avenues for even us, that I wouldn't want to see that not exist. And
also, there's the problem of what happened. Maybe we never would have gotten the Netflix shows,
right?
And those are other things we really love.
In my mind, with this buy or sell, all of that is off the table because if you know the history, it was Iron Man or bust.
Yep.
If that didn't,
Iron Man's the linchpin.
Yeah, if that didn't happen, none of this was going to happen. So I have to choose that and sacrifice the Dark Knight trilogy, which I love to death. But yeah. So I think we all really gave reasonable responses, and I actually had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, that was fun. I would definitely do that again.
Yeah, for sure.
Let us know in the comments or whatever if you guys like that segment. We'll definitely do more of it.
Yes, buy or sell,
or whatever.
Them in. you can send them in, and we will do them live on the air.
Buy or sell, or
if
whatever.
You're good.
Before we jump into the news, I do want to highlight some of this week's comic releases, some of the more important ones.
So you mean it's time for some Pals Pulls?
Pals Pulls, there you go. Hashtag Pals Pulls. So Wonder Woman 23 from DC. This is I believe it's the penultimate issue of Greg Rucka's run, which has been absolutely phenomenal. I have sung his praises. I'm a massive, massive fan of this run. And I'm actually very thankful for this run because I was looking for a reason to dive into Wonder Woman heavy, and I only bought it at first because it was Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott and Liam Sharp, who are all fantastic. And from the first issue, I was just absolutely hooked. And so I'm really sad actually that their run is coming to an end, but it is. And if you are interested in Wonder Woman, obviously now with the movie coming out, it's a perfect time to jump on board with that. Beauty 15, that's a book that we've highlighted on the show before. I think Marco talked it up at some point. Yeah, so that's out this week from Image. Also Deadly Class number 28, which is a great series. It's been going strong for a long time. From Marvel, we've got All New Wolverine number 19. We just had the release of Logan on DVD and Blu-ray, and this is Laura X-23 in her solo series, so check that out. Captain America Steve Rogers, number 17, continuing the threads of Secret Empire. That's still going strong if you enjoy that. I Am Groot number 1, which actually features Baby Groot. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Marvel has turned Groot into a baby now. So
I wonder why they would do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of weird, right?
Yeah, weird.
It's almost like synergistic marketing or something.
Yeah, huh? Jean Grey number 2. So,
Kale, you gonna pick that up?
I haven't
right,
gotten my free copy of Jean Grey #1.
I got you in Philly. So, I never commented on the show about what I thought about the first issue, so I'll do it briefly here. I actually really liked it, but it made me it more than me liking it, it made me miss the old Jean Grey. So I'm still gonna read the series, but I just really long for Jean Grey to return. The real Jean Grey, not this child with no bag.
Hashtag Grey is Bay.
Yes.
Sean, that's Dennis Hopeless, right?
Yeah.
On the book?
I believe so, yeah. And then Venom 150 is releasing. So they've sort of taken like every single issue of Venom ever, compiled all the numbers, and magically that amounted to 150. What a coincidence. And so Eddie Brock is back and reunited with the Venom symbiote, and I don't know. Are people interested? Are you guys interested?
Not remotely. What? Why is that a coincidence?
Well,
you had really heavy sarcasm there, so I wasn't.
You know, issue 150. Like, they compiled all the numbers and it came to 150. That's a real easy jump on number, you know?
Yeah. It seems like a big deal.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
I just, I don't... yeah, sure, but it's just, I don't know, man. Can we just, fucking leave well enough alone? I feel like we come back to this all the fucking time, but it's just, why? Why do we need this? Venom has evolved so far beyond...
Eddie Brock.
Yeah, one of the few characters that's had a real organic evolution in comics.
Yeah, and they're just backtracking it. And that's my favorite Venom, is the Eddie Brock Venom. Because that's when Venom was interesting, in the 80s, when he was new and it was fresh and it was for one story arc, not, I'm sorry.
I know someone who would definitely take exception with that.
Yeah, and if friend of the show Mark Bouchard's listening, sorry, not trying to put you on blast, but I like Venom. I'm a Venom fan, but I'm over it. I don't need more Eddie Brock stories. I don't need more backtracking. It's just so it just speaks to the big problem I think that exists in comics nowadays. It's just all about the status quo, and let's blow up the status quo so we can restore it. And
nowadays, this is always comics. Pete, you need to read Final Crisis and Multiversity and the end of the Batman saga by Grant Morrison.
It definitely has always been true, but I feel like it's worse now because it happens on such an accelerated timeline that I can see it happening in front of me over and over and over again. It's I'm exhausted by it. It's not 20 years ago there was a reboot, time for another one. Okay, no, it's I've seen Marvel go through how many events where they're all new Marvel now. It's I don't fucking care anymore. I don't care anymore, dude.
Status quo nihilism is it, Pete and Bessie, ladies and gentlemen.
I hate being that way. I don't want to be that guy. I fucking love Marvel. I love Venom. I don't want to be the guy sitting here complaining that they're bringing back Eddie Brock, but I am.
Cool. So that actually leads us into the news, the first news item. So, Pete, you're going to get to do that a lot more in a few minutes here. So The Atlantic published an article by Asher Elbein, I believe. It's been circulating a lot lately. A lot of people have been talking about this article because it dives into, and the article's title is The Real Reasons for Marvel's Comics Woes. For Marvel Comics Woes, I should say. So it talks about a lot of the stuff that we have addressed on the show.
That we talk about literally every week.
Right.
Ad nauseum.
And
it's so good.
I actually didn't want to include it, but it's being talked about so much that I felt like it was worth addressing it on some level. He talks about how, Civil War II was critically panned and how Marvel has been on a real downswing lately. How they've only had, in February, they only had one superhero title that sold more than 50,000 copies, which, if you know numbers in comics, 50,000 is that's a pretty solid selling comic today. For example, The Walking Dead and Saga do 70,000 on a regular basis. A new number one from Marvel might do 79,000. 50,000 is you're coasting, decently. So they only had one of those in February. That's pretty bad.
Especially when you consider how many books they put out.
Right, exactly. And this article talks a lot about that, how expensive it is to be a fan of Marvel Comics, which is very true. I can attest to that. When they do these #1 issues, they jack up the price to $5. They'll do that. Or they'll put out, like, for example, Secret Empire's $5. So, and then of course with these relaunches, the example is given in 2013. There was Mighty Avengers, written by Al Ewing, and Luke Cage led the Avengers. 14 issues later, Marvel relaunched it with a new #1 as Captain America and the Mighty Avengers. Then they canceled it 9 issues in. Then, in 2015, which at this point you're talking about just a couple of months in between cancellations and relaunches, Ewing started writing New Avengers and Ultimates, which is just the same characters basically on different teams with different names. Then Marvel relaunched them both a year later as Ultimates 2 and US Avengers. So it's very complicated and tough to follow this stuff. He also talks about how the creators are really the ones who drive the success of these books, and it's not necessarily due to Marvel's job as Marvel's marketing making these books do well, which I kind of agree with. And yeah, I mean,
dude, like, you don't need to look any further than Vision being what a big hit it was in 2015 for them to just prove that. Nobody gives a fuck about Vision. Like, Vision is a cool character, don't get me wrong, but, like, there's not, like, this legion of Vision hardcore fans, that he's a character that sells books. And it was because Tom King wrote a great story, and it was handled well.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, he does give an example of what we're talking about here, of creators really, really sort of doing their part to sell these comics. And it's unfortunate that the creators are, they'll spend their own money to help these books succeed, and they'll do their best. And then books like Spider-Man that are going to sell regardless, they're the ones with the machine behind them. They have the creative teams. They have, they're on the front of the banners. They get the interview opportunities that, some of these other writers don't necessarily get.
Yeah, like, you don't need to fucking promote Amazing Spider-Man.
No, it's got to sell itself.
And then another example is the artists, that you don't have a lot of creative teams at Marvel, and DC has this problem too, but you don't have a lot of creative teams that stick together for years,
right?
And that's
I made that point literally last week on the show.
You did, yeah. This is a new problem. This is like a very new problem at Marvel,
and it's honestly, I think it's the end of the market. Like, it's going to lead to the decay of comics, like, of as we know them, if we don't see this remedied.
Yeah, I think most people who read comics that have a vested interest and have been reading for years, they tend to follow creators. That's that's something we do.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And when there's nothing wrong with trying an artist out who might not have a name. That's great. I love when that happens.
Yeah, you should
Absolutely.
do that.
But when I read, for example, Spider-Man, right, the Miles Morales series, and it's Bendis and it's Sarah Pacelli, I believe her name is. Right.
Yeah, you're right.
I want to see them together until that book is over, right? But that doesn't happen. And since she left the title, I believe there have been 2 or 3 different artists that have, like, come on board at some point or another.
Yeah. And like, the article makes the point, it's because of the accelerated timelines and stuff too, that, like, there's not enough time given for some of these books to really be made.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
And especially when you have people working on multiple books, like, that's a problem.
Well, artists themselves can't even really do that, right? Because it takes so long to draw these titles. Like, you look at some of these artists that take months to draw a book, right?
Or or if you're Jim Lee, years.
Years, yeah.
I was gonna say, it's like, even like, you look at to pull, like, my favorite artist, right? Like, Ryan Otley is an incredibly talented artist, and, like, the only book he can work on is Invincible. And that's, like, part of why it's ending, is because, like, it's a full-time job to do a legit superhero book every month. that has solid art throughout and, 2-page spreads and 9-panel layouts and, like all the kind of stuff that makes a good comic. Like it takes work. It takes craftsmanship.
I think a big reason why the Scott Snyder Batman run was so successful is that it was a consistent team of him and Greg Capullo. And Greg Capullo is a tremendous artist, obviously, but you had a team, and that really, I think, aided that book's popularity because it was Snyder and Capullo's run.
Well, dude, and it's like I think people really underestimate. Like we've made this point before, but like artists are so underappreciated.
Sure.
Like artists
sure.
Artists are directors when it comes to comics. Like we love Tom King and we sing Tom King's praises and he's the scripter, but the artists are the directors. They're the ones that make it play out. And like not only is there the benefit of like when you have a creative team with a shared vision, they're working toward that vision together and that's going to make for a better product. But also, it's like that inconsistency. You can't have someone come on. It's like having a director come on in the middle of a fucking movie and trying to finish it, and like having to have it have a natural through line, But we're totally changing the directing style, and we're gonna change the color palette, and we're gonna change the way that all the characters look and all the costumes. And it's like, what do you fucking like? You can't do that. You can't just pull the rug out like that for no reason.
Well, imagine if they changed the artist on Watchmen halfway through. It would not be Watchmen.
Like exactly. Like Dave Gibbons is just as important, if not more important than Alan Moore in the craftsmanship of Watchmen and what Watchmen is. And like you can say that about so many books. Like these books that we're talking about, right? The Image books that are the 2 bestsellers, right? It's like Saga. Like that is just as much because of Fiona Staples' art as it is Brian's words, Like, she has had such an influence on that book. The visual style, some of the way that the stories played out, like, things like just creative decisions, Like, the fact that their ship was a tree was because she doesn't like drawing spaceships. Like, that changes. That's an entire arc of the story. And, like, and that, to ignore that artists are just as important in the storytelling process, like, ignores 50% of what makes a comic a fucking comic.
Yeah, I mean, you can't understand that enough.
That's to say nothing of chemistry, right? Like,
yeah, dude, like absolutely.
These books get better with time, and
because they get to learn each other, like, listening to writers talk, they write to their artist's strengths,
And you like Snyder and Capullo didn't even get along when they first started working together. They built chemistry over time. Now they're like the best of friends, and they're working on Metal. A huge reason why people are excited for Metal is because they're being reunited because of the history.
It's them. It's that group. That's part of why we're excited for the New God shit that Tom King's doing is because it's him and
Mr. Arts.
Yeah, right. It's like you're getting the band back together. Like that's huge.
Doomsday Clock is Johns and Frank. Like these things matter to fans.
Mm-hmm. When Morrison and Quitely are put together.
And it's more and more feeling like comics, the publishing of comics is becoming a machine, and it's not a labor of love anymore. And that's hard for me to even say, but the feeling is there. When they're like, this article accurately breaks down a lot of the things that cause fans to jump ship from Marvel and DC because they're not all like DC to a lesser extent right now, but whatever.
DC's on a real upswing. Like they were not free of guilt from this for a long time, but they've really been trying, I think, to turn the ship around lately.
Yeah,
don't give them too much credit. They're still corporate comics. Like,
no
we'll
question,
see, right?
No question.
We'll see. Like, I think they've earned right now the opportunity for some leeway.
I think they've earned optimism from us.
Yeah,
like they've earned the benefit of the doubt of us to think that they are trying to improve.
Well, and I think a good example of that is Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman, because
that's a pretty long run. Like it's been going for a while.
Well, but it had 2 artists, and it was doing 2 separate storylines.
Yeah,
and that eventually tied into each other, right, Sean?
They've been related to each other the whole time, because Rucka plotted this whole deal out when he was asked to do it. And he came up with an ingenious way to make the double shipping thing work, being forced to have 2 artists. So, to me, that's actually an example of DC's failure, having to have 2 artists just to publish these books twice a month. But they did let Greg Rucka do this and make it work. So that's a positive. But to be fair, he's leaving the book because in part of the double shipping, because it's too much. He can't do his other stories. So, pros and cons, but
double-edged sword,
right.
as they say.
Marvel has no, at this point at least, desire to show us that they care about the core fan, but also that they care about comics beyond the cash that they're going to get and preparing storylines for the movies.
Right, yeah, as a place to farm ideas from.
Ugh, God, I hate that. Like, the way you said it is exactly what it is, and I've heard it described that way, but it always just boils my blood. Like
that notion that like a comic is like a way to like.
I hate it.
Yeah,
I hate it. The notion. Something. Yeah, like it's you use the word farming. Ugh.
Right.
Why can't? I mean, I know I'm speaking figuratively, but why can't comics be comics?
I mean, to be fair, like that's kind of how everything is right now. Like it's not just comics. Like everything is trying to be a multimedia franchise. Everything wants a TV show and a movie and a video game or whatever. Like whatever it is that makes sense for it. But that's everything now. Anything that's moderately successful gets as much as they can they're gonna push it as far as they can go before everyone's
that's
fucking
great
sick of it.
Because I want to experience everything in every way. But comic books can still tell good stories and try to tell good stories without the short-sightedness. Civil War II was probably the most short-sighted event that I've ever heard of because the announcement came super late. It was announced with like months before the event actually released. And that's fine if they were working on it for years, but they weren't. They were literally working on it around the time of the announcement. That's crazy. That's insane. And they only did it because Civil War, the movie, was coming out. And it had been 10 years since the comic. If you know if you know that's coming up, why wouldn't you work on it for 2 years beforehand? That doesn't make any sense.
It's like the New 52.
Yeah, or like re-release Civil War, like make new printings, but they couldn't even do that because they had 50 million tie-ins.
Right, exactly. And they're stretched so thin. I think ultimately for me is like I would just wish that Marvel would treat their comics with the same care they treat the MCU. The same amount of thought put into it.
Yeah, they're the level of carelessness, and I hate it. Kills me to say these things because I really love Marvel, but some of these decisions are careless. Civil War II was ill-conceived, and the ideas sounded nice on paper, but you can tell that they just didn't have enough time to work on this properly.
I mean, it sounded nice on paper because they'd already done it.
Yeah. And Secret Empire, in contrast, is working so well because this is the storyline that they've been telling for like 2 years. So it's not a surprise that a storyline you've been working on for 2 years works.
Well, and it's also not a rehash of something because of a timeline. It's not like, oh, it's the 10th anniversary of the last time Captain America did something. Let's tell a Cap story. Like, that's not how you fucking tell a good story. And like, if the point of, it's like, say what you will about Civil War, right? I think we all know Civil War is a little bit of a divisive book, but I think we're mostly fans of it here. Civil War was great because it was trying to say something. Like it existed to tell a story that needed, or that the authors, the people who crafted it felt needed to be told. And Civil War II is literally just being made to be made. It's being made to hopefully get some extra money in our pocket because there's a movie out right now and people will pick up this number one. Or because, it's the 10th anniversary of this thing, let's do a sequel.
I think, Pete, if you started reading a little more DC, you'd feel a little less pessimistic.
I doubt it.
A little bit.
I've been reading DC my whole life, and here I am as grumpy as ever.
Yeah, that's never going to change, though.
No, you're right. It's not. And
unless you got some coffee enemas or something, or Marco's chewable enemas.
But reading DC is not going to make that any better. It's still corporate comics.
Well, I hate to do this, but I think we've got some more news coming down the pipe that's going to trigger Pete. And I think that's the theme of this episode, quite frankly. Because now we're...
Until we get to Wonder Woman, where I can just be like, I really like these books. They were so good. I love DC. I can't wait. Give me such a tonal shift.
I like your tonal shift. It's wonderful.
Right? That was crazy. We're going to talk about Edge of Venomverse, which is being written by the lead singer of Yellowcard, Ryan Key.
I think I could sum this news item up in a sentence. I sure hope it works so that we can see Ryan Key do something else that I'll get to read. Like,
yeah, that's how I feel.
Whoa, could be good.
Of course, Phil, it could be good.
So,
can we?
It's like it's just weird. It's weird how many like lead singers from bands that I listened to when I was like 13 are writing comics now, and it's super cool. I really like Yellowcard. I mean, I really like one of their albums anyway. A whole lot.
Yeah.
What wasn't one of their songs in one of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies?
Yeah, they did the song for I think Spider-Man 2.
The song for Spider-Man 2 was Dashboard Confessional. Vindicated.
Oh my god, yeah, it was Vindicated, right?
They were on the soundtrack though, for sure.
They wrote an original song for one of the movies. I don't remember which one, but I thought it was Spider-Man 2.
It would make sense. They were popular at that time. I do want to say that I read the interview that he did with Marvel.com, which we will be posting, and he sounds committed. He sounds like he has good ideas. He clearly has read Old Man Logan and does care for that run, and that's going to intersect with his issue of Edge of Venomverse, which is number 4. So he's got good ideas. Now, he's never written a comic before, or at least not to my knowledge. So
I think you're right. I think this is his first foray.
Yeah, so we'll see how his execution is. But I don't care about Venomverse. I don't care about Edge of Venomverse. I was a fan of Yellowcard like 20 years ago. So this is not for me, and I kind of wish they would just stop all this. Like it's too many events. Like I love events like more than anybody.
Whoa.
But Venomverse is not a thing that comics needs, in my opinion.
I'm 1,000% in agreement with you on that one. I'd just like to echo Kale's sentiment that I hope this goes well so I can see him write something I actually care about. I hope he's as good as like all the other weird pop punk singers that have come out of the woodwork to write comics lately, because Gerard Way's killing it. What's his name? Max Bemis from Say Anything just did Fool Killer last year. It's like a ton of like guys from that ilk period coming out of the woodwork here.
Question. Wasn't there something resembling a Venomverse in Marvel like 15 years ago, where a bunch of symbiotes run amok? Wasn't that like a thing?
There was a thing like that even a couple of years ago. It was United States of Carnage. Carnage took over a bunch of people, and like I think it was like in Kansas or something. It was like he had a state that was like all carnaged out and shit.
You're referring to Mighty Avengers, which had a story arc in which like symbiotes came and
yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
New back then, it was just
so it's happened 2 times in the last few years.
Back then, it was just a storyline in a comic book. Now it's an event. Yippee!
Yeah, but see, they took it from it's a storyline. Then they had one single comic about it. Now they're going to do an event about it. We totally haven't run out of ideas.
I don't know why they're choosing to expand on it, because it's a stupid idea anyway. But
well, like it was a good idea the first time.
One time.
Yeah.
It's a good idea for a single issue of a comic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, or no, I think it's a good storyline for the Avengers, like a symbiote invasion. And that's like a thing.
Or even just Spider-Man, like.
Yeah.
Like that's a book I would read. Spider-Man against a world of Venoms. Sure.
So now let's transition into the films a little bit. The movie that we're all super excited for has found a director. So Silver and Black.
Sean!
The Silver Sable and Black Cat movie by Sony has a director.
They found a way to make it less appealing by giving it that name.
It's one movie.
It's one movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I guess that's better than 2 movies.
yeah, I guess that's better.
Is it? I don't even know.
Yeah, that's my confliction. Like, is that better? I can't tell. Like, I still don't want it.
See,
Tell us more, Sean.
okay, yeah. So
I'm so fucking upset.
it's
by
being
this.
directed by a woman, which is great. Gina Prince Bythewood. She's gonna direct it. That's cool. This is the first. She's the first woman directing a Marvel-based film since Lexi Alexander directed Punisher Warzone. My question is, how do these characters even intersect without Spider-Man?
They don't. None of these characters are relevant without Spider-Man. It's like this is so dumb, and I hate it. I hate this the most because, like I said, like I like Venom, but like I'm not really like precious about Venom. I think Venom has like one real good storyline. I really love Black Cat. Like I love her as a character. I think she's like my favorite femme fatale. And, like, I think she's a great foil to Spider-Man. I think almost every storyline she's ever been a part of has been just fun, you know? Like, they have great chemistry. And, like, it fucking sucks that they're going to waste her in a movie that Spider-Man's not even in.
So I'm looking at her filmography as like a director, and like she's done a lot of TV. Like she directed an episode of the Bernie Mac Show, an episode of Everybody Hates Chris, a couple episodes of the show Shots Fired. She's doing the first episode, it looks like, of Cloak and Dagger. So she's mostly like a TV person.
I mean, I'm not going to hold that against her, but...
No, but that's interesting, I guess. She doesn't have like a big filmography, you know?
Well, what's interesting about this is that it'll be a movie led by 2 women, directed by 2 women, directed by a woman. I don't know, man. That does actually kind of I'm not pumped about the idea, but that does turn it around a little bit for me. Like,
it doesn't matter. Like, the problem isn't, like, I wasn't not interested in this movie because a man was making it. I'm not interested in it because it shouldn't exist. Like,
well, yeah, but I mean, now it's like, if we don't, and this sucks to say, but like, if we don't support this, how are we going to get more female-led films?
I don't even care, honestly.
Yeah, dude, I'm not going to go see this. I don't care. Like, I'm not supporting these. I'm going to see Wonder Woman. I pledged to go see Wonder Woman, even if Wonder Woman sucked. So that's where I'm drawing my line in the feminist comic reader's sand. Like, I'm not going to go see a fucking Black Cat Silver Sable movie.
I've said this the last episode or two, but like I really rigidly don't care about the continuity with the comics or how they weave with other characters. If they can tell an interesting story and make it a good movie, like independent of that, I don't care. Like I'll see it.
It just doesn't make sense, though. Like it's.
It could. It doesn't. It doesn't have to relate to it. Like I mean, it could be independent. I know it isn't in the comics,
but then like that's a perversion of the characters, man. It's like, what is even the point of using their names? Like. You know, it's like Black Cat's entire fucking story is literally, it's all about, like, she's a cat burglar who meets Spider-Man, and they have this weird romantic tension, and then that turns her into, like, a anti-hero kind of character. Like, her entire arc as a character is based on her relationship with Spider-Man.
You're pigeonholing her, though. You're limiting her. You're making her just a foil to another character.
But that's what she is!
But maybe this movie could do something more significant.
I guess, but, like, then that's not Black Cat.
It could
Black
be.
Cat has 2 stories ever that are not involved with Spider-Man.
Yeah, but
she had a miniseries with Sabretooth or some shit, and then she was in Heroes for Hire.
Yeah, but that's the point, though. Like, this could be something new. This is you talk about going back to status quo, and this could be something imaginative and fresh. It doesn't have to be.
But it's not the character I like. So like,
yeah, that's exactly what this is. This is not my version of this, and that's where the whole issue comes from.
Yeah, but no, because it's not the same thing. Like that's different when there's a character that has multiple interpretations. This is one character that's been consistently written since she was introduced, and now you're going to change what is her like she is a Spider-Man character. That's like saying, oh, it could be good to see a movie about fucking Mary Jane without Spider-Man. It's like, cool.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Sure, but that's a movie about a fucking model, not a person who is this, like.
Yeah, but that'd be unique. That'd be fresh.
All right, okay. So I think, Phil, yes, the movie could be good. Obviously anything could be, right? We've established that over the many months we've been doing the show, but I think Pete's reservations are well said and also reasonable in that, there's a character that we know and love, and you want to see them portrayed reasonably as the character that you're familiar with in the comics. Now, maybe there's a way that they pull that off. We haven't seen this. We haven't seen Venom. We don't know what they're thinking. We definitely don't know what they're thinking. But it remains to be seen. So this news, I don't know. Maybe Pete will like this. So we've got some.
Wanted to talk about Wonder Woman.
We've got some New Mutants news. So we've talked about New Mutants. We're kind of optimistic about it. Now we know that it's going to be a horror movie, which is interesting. And that's coming from the director himself, Josh Boone. That it's not going to have a traditional villain. They're not going to be capes and tights. It's not that kind of film. He's pulling inspiration from Stephen King and John Hughes. He describes it as a surreal and impressionistic X-Men series. He says, "We love that Fox wants to make all these different X-Men spin-offs as drastically different as they can." So that's really interesting. But in addition, we know that joining the cast is my favorite actress right now, I think, Rosario Dawson.
Oh, she's
wonderful.
And she's going to be playing
That's cool.
Cecilia Reyes, who's kind of like Professor X for that team. And then also Henry Zaga, who played Brad in Netflix's 13 Reasons Why. He's going to be playing Sunspot. So some decent news. I'm not sure about the horror element, but I like the casting.
See, I was really into it when he said horror and that, but then it was it's not capes and tights and it's impressionistic and surreal. It's
that sounds awesome to me.
No,
that's
awesome.
The
shit I want.
That's gonna be It Follows set in the X-Men universe.
Oh, that sounds fucking great.
No, it doesn't, Phil. Get the fuck out of here.
I love Claremont's New Mutants run. It's terrific, but I want fresh shit on the screen. If this is surreal and impressionistic, and it's kind of got horror elements, and it's that this all sounds good to me. And the cast sounds good.
I'm not against any of that. I'm just afraid of something that's going to come off as a little self-indulgent. That's some of those are very hearing someone talking about their own work and being it's impressionistic and it's okay.
That's fair.
This doesn't turn me off.
This movie's gonna be too good for capes and tights.
Well, he was also.
Don't even worry about how childish it's gonna be, because it's not gonna have capes and tights. Capes and tights are for children. This is a horror movie for adults.
What do you call this character?
That's Brian Singer.
He's referring to and pulling inspiration from a particular run on New Mutants by Bill Sienkiewicz, which I think is the
Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
So he's saying that run is inspiring him. That run was those things, and he's going towards that. So, that's okay, I guess, but we'll see. I don't know if the horror element really works, but you do have characters like Wolfsbane, so maybe it does. I don't know. But I don't know if I care about another X-Men movie where they're straying away from, what the X-Men are. I hated that First Class seemed to, hate the fact that it was a superhero movie. That really bothered me.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I get it's good, but it just bothered me that it didn't seem to want to be a superhero movie. And I feel
that's the problem with a lot of the X-Men movies. They feel embarrassed by their source material, Yeah. And that's the thing I don't want. The horror stuff, that all sounds good. It's just a matter of is this going to feel like an X-Men movie, or are you going to take X-Men characters and put them into, a horror setting? I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm optimistic about it, but this statement stokes my interest, but also makes me very cautious in a way I wasn't before.
If it's quality level like First Class, I'm in the driver's seat, baby. Give me the green light.
God, I want to give you the red light so bad. So this.
You don't have to put on the red light.
This next piece of news is nothing to be laughing about or excited about. Unfortunately, Zack Snyder has chosen to step down from Justice League to deal with an unbelievable tragedy in his family. His daughter committed suicide in March. She was 20 years old. They've really tried to keep it private and not really talk about what's happened. The movie went on break for 2 weeks so that he could have the opportunity to do this, or to deal with this and be there for his family. Here's a quote directly from him. "In my mind, I thought it was a cathartic thing to go back to work, to just bury myself and see if that was the way through it. The demands of this job are pretty intense. It is all-consuming, and in the last 2 months, I've come to the realization I've decided to take a step back from the movie to be with my family, be with my kids who really need me. They are all having a hard time. I'm having a hard time." So he's obviously broken by this, and any parent would be, and I think it's totally reasonable and responsible for him to make this choice because we're just talking about a movie right now. But now that he is sort of stepping back, Joss Whedon is stepping in to finish the movie. The movie's shot already, but do some post-production work and stuff like that.
A couple extra scenes, they said. He's doing a little bit of work on it. Oh, and he's gonna help in the editing process as well.
Yeah, so Snyder wanted it.
He's kind of taking it home. Snyder got it to third base, and now he's gonna kind of get it the rest
Snyder
of the way.
wanted to shoot additional scenes and obviously have someone write them, so he brought Joss Whedon on board. This took place before he even left the project. We didn't know about it, but this did happen.
And I know Warner Brothers also gave him the opportunity to push the film back. They're take as much time as you need or whatever. And he was like, no, let's just let Joss finish it. So this was directly Zack Snyder's decision.
Yeah. So the only thing that I do want to say before we address this, before we all address this, is one, this is terrible. And obviously our hearts and thoughts go out to his family. But also the reaction that some people have had to this news is disgusting. Say what you will about Zack Snyder. We have talked about...
I've said a lot about the guy.
We have said...
I call him Hack Snyder, and Jesus Christ,
we have said a lot
man.
of negative things about him on this show, and a lot of people have wherever they communicate. But people are celebrating that he is leaving the project because Joss Whedon is coming, and they think that he's going to quote-unquote save the movie. This is insane, and it's very misguided.
The man's child died. The man's child died. There are bigger things in a superhero movie.
That is not relevant right now, and Joss Whedon coming on board is not something to celebrate because this guy is, in pain right now. His family's in pain right now. That's the focus of this. Joss Whedon coming on board, that's an afterthought, I would imagine, or it should be.
It should be, yeah. If you're not a fucking asshole,
So go ahead.
Oh man, that's it, dude. It's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. It's I'm not a fan of the guy, but I feel for him. No one should have to deal with this. This is the worst thing that could happen to a parent. And I respect him for trying to finish the project. But my condolences.
It's terrible. There's no other way of putting it. Losing a family member, especially that young, I can't imagine it. And so people whose heads are so far up their asses to make this about entertainment and how it impacts them, fuck off. Royally fuck off. That's all I gotta say.
And let me temper that, I guess. If you are one of those people, look inward, man. Because, I don't think you're a bad person. I understand you're, I saw headlines that didn't include the personal tragedy element, and I remember having that reaction of, yay, I love Joss Whedon, I don't like Zack Snyder. Fine. But, be a human being right now and realize that, there are bigger things at play here than the Justice League movie.
I'd also like to point out that people are saying that Joss Whedon is saving a movie they haven't even seen. So you have no idea what this movie's going to be like. It could be the greatest thing ever. You don't know. You just hate Zack Snyder. So you hear this news and you have this crazy reaction. And it's like, listen, this is the kind of thing that I have talked about on this show before. And we've all talked about where it's like, as a fan, you need to realize that this is just entertainment. And there's no reason to celebrate the death of someone, to wish death upon someone, to threaten someone with death. All these things are excessive. We're talking about entertainment. These are people who provide entertainment for us. If you don't like what Zack Snyder does, that's fine. But he's trying to provide entertainment for you. And you're happy that his daughter died so that Joss Whedon can make a movie?
I'd also like to say, and like, take this with a grain of salt, right? Or walk with me here. Like, do you really think that the characters that these movies are about would be happy that you are celebrating the suicide of a young woman? Do you think Superman would think that that was the right thing to do? Do you think Batman would think that's the right thing to do? I don't think so. So, what, like, if you really, really love superheroes so much, if you really love comics so much, why don't you learn something from what you're reading and take a page out of these people out of these characters, these fictional characters that you supposedly admire so much? Why don't you, try acting a little bit more graceful?
Well said. I think we leave it there. Moving on. Justice League Dark also did lose its director, Doug Liman, who was working on this film, Justice League Dark, which they've been making this movie for, I feel like, forever.
It's been in gestation for since 2011 or something.
Yeah,
as I say, development hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, ever since Guillermo del Toro has been unattached to it, I'm
unattached as well. Yes.
Out. Yeah. Right. Exactly. That was a movie that I only gave a shit about because Guillermo del Toro was the one who was making it happen.
So he left this to work on a film called Chaos Walking, which actually Tom Holland is attached to.
Yeah, that's cool.
Who's that?
Tom Holland.
Shut up.
And Daisy
Spider-Man, you nerd.
And Daisy Ridley as well, which is really cool. So.
Oh wow! What?
All right.
Yeah.
Now you have
so
my
maybe
attention.
That's the movie we should be talking about. But he actually left Gambit to direct this, which is interesting, and is replacing Del Toro, who left the project in 2015. So this movie, is it going to get made?
I don't think this movie. I mean, not that it never gets made, but the only reason it was getting made was because of Guillermo del Toro. Because Guillermo del Toro is a name among nerds. Pacific Rim was a recent international success at that point. He has cachet. And that was the only reason anyone cared about this movie. The characters that make up this team, if they're still the same characters that they originally pitched it with, they're not names. They're not characters that... DC right now is not trying to bring up their C-listers and make them popular, like Marvel did with the Guardians. They're banking on things that are known quantities. And of the Dark Avengers, Constantine had a TV show that wasn't successful, and Swamp Thing is something that
Marco likes.
Comic book fans care about, and not even really. Yeah, Marco. And a handful of other diehards. Swamp Thing has his fans, but Swamp Thing's not fucking Superman or Batgirl, So at this point, no.
I kind of agree. I don't think this movie gets made.
I like these characters. I was very invested when Guillermo del Toro was attached.
It's a cool lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good ensemble. I think you could tell a really meaningful story. The fact that it's in development hell like this doesn't leave me with a lot of optimism, honestly. It's usually a kind of not a positive sign. I mean, this project started out as a passion project for Guillermo. The Warner Brothers executives were like, this is a pretty good idea. Let's go forward with it. But it lost the visionary that had the idea, and I can't imagine it being salvaged into something that's good. I mean, it's very possible, obviously, but the way the cards are on the table don't point to a optimistic direction.
Yeah, I think at this point it's just what is their impetus to make this movie? You know, the director was the name. It was a passion project. He's gone. Who's going to go see this movie anyway? You know, like...
I would, but...
I mean, I would, but I don't know.
I mean, so that goes to the Guardians of the Galaxy thing. People are like, who the fuck is going to see Guardians of the Galaxy?
But Marvel was in a position to do that, you know, and DC's not. And that's my thing, is like DC's in a downward slope.
But with a name like Del Toro, they could have been.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That and now, I don't think so.
Well, we shall see. Right now, that movie needs a director. Stats. So
I'm on it.
As much as that movie needs a director, Matt Reeves' Batman movie needs a Batman, because apparently Ben Affleck might not play Batman in this new film.
Called it.
You actually did. You did.
Sure did.
So the DCEU producer Charles Roven, who's been involved in like a metric ton of their films, he recently did an interview. Where he implied on some level that Ben Affleck might not be involved. So I'll read the quote. I mean, I'm not really involved with the Batman, but from everything, we have a cursory involvement because that character is going to touch us some way. If Ben plays that character, it's going to touch some part of what we are doing. But I have no feeling whatsoever, except positive, that Matt loves Ben and the work he has done as Batman, and Ben thinks that Matt is a really terrific filmmaker. I have every expectation that they are going to make a movie together. Now, when I first read this, my thought was, this is an exaggeration. The writer of this article is taking a quote and blowing it up to make it seem like...
Yeah, presenting it out of context, right, or whatever.
I read it a few times to make sure that was how I felt. And after I read it a few times, that wasn't how I felt. Because Charles Roven is not a nobody. He's a big wig over there. He's produced a ton of their films. He wouldn't know. And he is saying...
He's using very particular language,
exactly.
Too.
This is a guy who knows the routine.
If Ben plays Batman, right, I am confident they will make him... What do you mean you're confident they're going to make a movie together? We thought it was happening.
Right. It's almost as if he's implying that Matt and Ben have to work out whether or not Ben is going to be in the movie. Almost as if Matt may have to choose for Ben to be in it, and Ben has to choose to want to do it. It doesn't seem set in stone right now, which is crazy for a movie that already lost its director in Ben Affleck, and is coming out in a year.
No, it isn't. It's not coming out in a year, but...
If it does, oh boy.
It'll be a fucking train wreck.
Batfleck Watch. It's been a while, guys, since we've had our finger on the pulse of Batfleck Watch.
Guys, how great would it be if there was actually a Batman movie worse than Batman and Robin?
Oh, see, that movie's bad in a way that, like, it's fun to watch still. This might be bad in an Electra kind of way.
Like, just like a not even... You can't even make memes about it bad.
Like $5 DVD bin at Walmart bad.
Right.
Like you can at least watch Batman and Robin, and it's like you laugh because it's campy. Like the Mr. Freeze, Arnold Schwarzenegger shit. Like I'll still get a kick out of that. But
yeah,
it could be like just unwatchably bad.
It's going to be the Fantastic Four, the new Fantastic Four of Batman movies if it gets made.
They recently said that, I mean, this was a few months ago now, but that there might even be a page one rewrite of this thing. So we lost the director, they rewrote it, we don't even know if Deathstroke's going to be in it, and now...
They rewrote it like twice, too.
Yeah, and now Ben Affleck might not play Batman, so what is this movie? You know, like, I don't understand.
It's about Batman, Sean.
Oh, yeah. Great. We need more of those, like, I need a hole in the head.
Oh, boy.
No, actually... I don't feel that way.
I mean, the way it sounds, you might need an extra hole in your head. I mean,
yeah, I could use an extra mucus strain this week. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of you who don't know, I'm having a coughing fit on the side. But
Marco's such a good editor. Hopefully, you don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully, this movie somehow ends up being good, because contrary to what I just said, which was just a joke, I really do want more great...
A hole in the head?
No. I really do want more great Batman films, and I would love for this to be that, but my hopes right now are at the bottom of the Batcave. So
I just hope that they just push it back.
yeah, just push it back. Just push it back to 2020. Just give it time, do it right. So here's an interesting story. The Alamo Drafthouse has launched a women-only screening of Wonder Woman for June 6th. And some people, some men.
So some penis having people.
Yeah. are extremely mad about this. And I just want to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah, why didn't they have a fedora screening?
They're big babies. It's just childish. Grow up.
My favorite tweet about this was the Alamo should do a men's only screening of Magic Mike XXL or whatever.
I don't know. Like, for me, man, it's like, this is just like, it's a non-issue. Like, it's a non-issue you're turning into an issue. It's a charity event. All the proceeds are going to women's charities. It's one night. It's not like it's the only showing of...
It's not one night now. They've done, now they're doing it. Now they're doing it all across the country, and they're putting on multiple showings.
Oh, that's cool.
Because of all these men rights douchebags.
All the neckbeards out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it's a charity event, man. You know, it's like this is no different than like a women's luncheon or some shit like that, and it's not like there aren't men only events in the world. You know, like people are like, oh, like if this was a men's only event, people would flip out, and it's like, well, yeah, if there was a men's only screening of Wonder Woman, that wouldn't really make a lot of sense, but no one would bat an eyelash if we had like a men's only showing of like Die Hard or some shit. You know, like it's fine, it's really okay.
Hey, bro. Hey, bro, you don't even like Wonder Woman. Like, what are you doing?
It's like, I don't know, dude. Just like, all of these showings they're not the only showing that day. So it's like, it's not like you're being told you can't go to any screening of Wonder Woman this day. It's like, you can't go to this one screening because it's a special event. Just get over it.
So yeah, when's the fedora screening?
Yeah, no, we heard that joke the first time, Phil.
I had to say it again.
It wasn't that good the first time. It definitely lost its luster the second time.
It's a classic. It's impressionistic.
It's surreal and impressionistic. It's not just capes and tights, you guys. And I think you see it a lot where it's like there are a lot of nerds, who want to keep nerddom and geekdom a boys club. They're mad that it's becoming more inclusive or whatever. They're mad that it isn't what it used to be. That it used to be this community of outcasts and it was more underground and it was this and that, and it's it's changing. And like you gotta evolve with it or don't. But I think the fact that you have you're never gonna have a reasonable discourse with a man who says that you're ruining his childhood because the new Ghostbusters movie stars women without even seeing it. It's sexist. It's what it is, you're going to say that, the existence of women in your space is ruining it. You're a bigot. And maybe you can change that person's mind, but, it's also not our job to do that. It's not women's job to put up with them and try to change their minds. And I guess that's where the responsibility comes on other people within the community, where it's like, we need to call that shit out when we see it, but it's like talking to a brick wall sometimes.
Yeah. So I guess that's a good place to leave it. It's an interesting turn, and I was afraid that I don't want to continue this conversation. I just want to say that I really, really, really want to see this movie succeed, and we need men have to go see it too in order for it to succeed. And I don't want people who may have gone to see it otherwise to not go because of some stupid thing like this. Just let it go. It's not a big deal. Let women have their day. There's nothing wrong with that at all. This is a celebration for everyone who's a fan of this character, man or woman, and just leave it at that. So we're going to continue to talk about Wonder Woman. This is like Wonder Woman month, if you will, just because we've got the movie coming out, which is so exciting, and the character's been on our minds a lot lately. So we figured it'd be a great opportunity for us to talk about Wonder Woman, but also talk about some of the most important Wonder Woman comics that have ever come out. And so we're going to do that this week. Next week we'll be reviewing the film. And then the week after that, we're going to talk more about some Wonder Woman comics. So this week, we're going to talk about Grant Morrison's Wonder Woman Earth 1, which, we're all big fans of. And then we're also going to talk about a storyline from Gail Simone's run on Wonder Woman, which was The Circle.
It was actually her first thing she did for Wonder Woman.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in. I do want to preface this by kind of addressing, and I want this to be a theme throughout the conversation, is what does Wonder Woman stand for? Who is she? Who's important to her? Does she kill? Will she kill, and why? And what separates her from the other people in the Trinity, so Batman and Superman? What makes her different and unique? Other than the fact that she's a woman, which is just obvious.
I'd also like to preface this conversation with we will be doing full spoilers for both of these books, so if you are not familiar with Earth 1 rather, Wonder Woman and The Circle, you don't want to have them spoiled for you, now would probably be a good time to tag out.
Yeah, for sure. Or stick around and then hear our conversation and go buy them after.
Because they're definitely worth reading. There's not any spoilers or anything that will make it so you can't enjoy the book. They're good because of their craft, not because of any reveal or anything like that.
And they're super affordable too.
Yeah, they're both. I mean, Earth 1 just came out, but it's a single graphic novel.
Yeah.
So,
to start, one of the things that I've noticed in a lot of Wonder Woman books is that a lot of writers, because there's not a movie, right? And there's not, I guess, that definitive run on the character, even though a number of great creators have graced the comic book, there isn't that definitive sort of Wonder Woman identity, if you will.
I don't remember what episode it was that this first came up, but I remember I said that, and you and Phil wanted to fucking string me up by my legs for saying that there wasn't a definitive Wonder Woman run.
There's not, but there's a lot of really great ones.
Yeah, sure, no question.
Yeah, that was, I think that was the point that Phil and I were making at the time.
I remember.
Oh boy.
Now I have to go back and listen. But that being said, though, a lot of times writers try to sort of redo her origin or add to her origin things that I guess they feel will enhance the story. And so I do want to start with Grant Morrison's Earth 1 because it is it's the second most recent reinterpretation of her origin. The most recent is Greg Rucka's run, which we'll talk about next time.
2 episodes.
Sorry?
2 episodes from now, right?
Yes. So Grant Morrison's Earth 1 doesn't actually take place in the sort of canon of DC. It's kind of like an Elseworlds tale, if you will. But it's really, really good. Morrison,
I was so blown away by it.
Go ahead, talk about it.
I mean, oh man, that was the first Wonder Woman story I've ever read.
Wow.
Where Wonder Woman was the lead character, and I was
That's a good one to start, buddy.
Wow, what a book, man. I was particularly impressed by the art. I made some notes here. I think
Yannick Paquette is his name. He's from Quebec.
Yeah. Yannick Paquette is the artist. If somebody could look up the colorist real quick, I want to give particular shout out to them as well.
Oh yeah, it's real special.
Nathan Fairbairn.
Thank you. The thing that stood out to me most artistically, aside from the fact that it's just gorgeous, Paquette's art is just awesome. I love the way he draws Diana. I just think it has a really great. It's exactly what I like in comics. It's that realistic kind of quality, but without losing the bombasticness of it. But what I was really blown away by was the way that they used panels.
Yeah.
The fact that there's W-shaped panels, sometimes and stuff like that. Just such creative use of the page. How every time. So for those of you who don't know, the framing of the story is that Wonder Woman is
on trial.
On trial, yeah, at Themyscira. Her mother, how do you say it?
Hippolyta.
Oh wow!
Never knew how to pronounce that.
Yeah, me neither.
She is, residing over this trial, and it's because Wonder Woman has, broken their law and gone to man's world, as well as a few other things that I will probably get into later. But so what I liked was that whenever you break from the trial and show these moments of defiance or the definitive moments that led her to become Wonder Woman, the page layout changes a little bit, and there's always these creative borders. Like the first time you see her don the Hercules, the lion head that her mother had as a trophy, and run through the woods, and she has this smile on her face and she's enjoying herself. The border changes from your straight white borders to the stars and the blue, like from her costume. And then later, when it's showing her connection with Steve Trevor, like you have the lasso and stuff like that. And I just thought there was a lot of like really subtle things like that made the flow of the story really interesting and not just by the books.
What's interesting about Morrison's methodology is that he actually illustrates his books before he writes them. So like he'll create the comic himself, like from scratch, draw it and like panel it, and then he'll interpret what he drew and send that to the artist.
Huh.
Yeah, and he never sends, like, he's got folders upon folders of comics that will never be released that he drew, because he never sends them to anyone, because he interprets what he drew for the artist, because he doesn't want to tell them exactly how to do it.
Wow. That's
so he like doubles his workload.
Well, I mean, the work speaks for itself.
Yeah. So the background in this book, there's like a few aspects. He wanted to do a story where he said that in life, it seems like women are always kind of on trial for everything, and that's what this story is. Diana Prince is on trial for like all womanhood, which is where Steve Trevor comes in on the island. And the other thing is that he said that people can connect with Batman and Superman more organically because, Batman's parents are dead and people can relate to like his grief. Superman's planet blew up and he was raised by really earnest parents. Like that's an everyman thing, but like traditionally Wonder Woman's made from clay and she's a goddess, and there's like a big disconnect for a lot of people for that. And so like he really wanted to focus on the like birth aspect of it. He talks about how Themyscira is so far removed from having men on the island, but there's like still the remnants of like the primal carnage of like what it means to be a man there, because like there's a lot of phallic imagery on the island and stuff. So like the context that went into this, I think, is super unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, also considering the fact that, like, and this is something that Grant always does, but he'll pull from the whole history of the character in order to tell his stories. This story has...
In this one...
Go ahead.
In this one, the big pole is William Marston.
Right, exactly.
The creator of Wonder Woman, who also invented the lie detector. And, like, he wanted to, like... In those early stories, it's very sort of stag party and bondage oriented, and that kind of reflects his lifestyle because he was like involved in a very untraditional menage a trois. Like the younger woman in that three-way relationship was what the model of Wonder Woman was based on originally. And a lot of those elements got lost, especially in the 50s as comics got a little more, like that stuff was already fairly risque. And in the 50s, that stuff was really frowned upon, especially with the comics code. So that's a lot of...
like Wonder Woman was one of the big impetuses behind that. Was that like, oh, she promotes lesbianism and alternative lifestyles and all this kind of stuff.
And her book never sold as well after William Marston left it in the early 40s. And like that's always been a problem for Wonder Woman is like, what's the formula to make her work? And that was like Grant's idea. Is like, well, let's take her back to like her roots.
Right. And the bondage imagery is all over this book.
It's so prevalent, yeah.
Absolutely. And I appreciated that, having never read any of the original Wonder Woman comic books. So those things that so influenced the character and I had always known about were never present in the books. Like the way the lasso was used. I love the way the lasso was used. How they used it as a lie detector, essentially. Like the lasso of truth is a lie detector. You cannot lie when you're under it, and how they use it to force the people who are speaking during the trial to tell the truth. I really appreciated that, and how Paquette used, like in his paneling, sometimes the lasso was weaved through it. I really appreciated that as well.
That was so good.
Yeah, and then again later, when I think it was Medusa, but it was a Gorgon shows up, and there's like the scales on the page and everything, like bleeding into it and everything. It's like it's little things, but they make you like, I don't know, they draw you in.
Yeah.
And we talked about this earlier, but creative teams and how they work. Yannick took a long time to put this book together from an illustration perspective. Like there was a lot of care and love and craft went into this, and it shows.
Oh yeah, yeah,
for sure. So let's talk about the story a bit, because I love how it starts. Right, it starts with Wonder Woman's mother, Hippolyta. You said
Hippolyta.
Sort of under attack by Hercules. Right, and he's wearing.
I mean, not even under attack. Like she's in chains. Like she's lost.
Right. Yeah. And they're all in chains. They're all bound.
The Amazons have been enslaved.
Right. And he's wearing this lion on his head, and it's so ridiculous and very
the hyper masculinity of men.
Exactly. Very Grant Morrison-y, if you will. And I just love the way that she's able to draw strength from her goddess and rise above this and then free the women. And like, it's just such a moment of celebration. And in that instance, you get a real feel for what Themyscira is about. But what's interesting is that they were all bound. And that bondage kind of is like the thing that they carry over with them into...
Yeah, it becomes a part of their culture.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was really interesting, and I wonder like why Grant made that choice. But I really did love that whole sequence. And I loved how Wonder Woman, she wears that lion's head when they're
in
playing.
The stag parties.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was brilliant.
One thing Grant said is that with the absence of man on Themyscira, their civilization stagnated to an extent because they've already reached perfection, but there's no constant like wrestling of like the genders, and like they're just perpetual like give and take and turmoil. So like
there's no us and them.
Yeah, it's just, everything's the same as it was when you fast forward through time since like the ancient Greek times. That's how Grant put it.
Kale, do you have anything you want to add?
I agree on everything you said about the art. Yannick Paquette is incredible. I've seen him once or twice in other books, and the art is
he did
amazing.
The Scott Snyder Swamp Thing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I haven't read that. But
his stuff is
I've seen him. It's amazing. This story didn't do it for me.
Really?
For me, it may be these Earth One books. I'm not into it. I think it's sort of the issue I kind of have with most superhero origin movies. It's just like, I've seen it, I know other people need to know it, but
this was like a new take on it, though.
Sort of.
That was kind of the whole point of it, was that it was like a reimagining of Wonder Woman's origin.
I mean, kind of, and the imagery in it is great. You know, I really enjoyed like the explanation of like the invisible plane. But I mean, you know, the Wonder Woman discourse of, oh, she's not actually made from clay. She's made from, she's actually the daughter of Zeus, or the daughter of Hercules, or the daughter of Ares. It's been done before. I just like, and I appreciate, you know, that Morrison was trying. I appreciate what he did with the bondage stuff. I think that's a really interesting thing that, you know, hasn't been explored, but it just wasn't.
They are doing a volume 2, those two, Morrison and Paquette. So maybe that'll be more your speed.
And yeah, I hope so. Because unlike the Circle, which we're about to talk about, like I did like that. I just like this. For me, this is a weaker Morrison title.
I'm so surprised to hear that. Honestly, I was really blown away by it, but I don't have any history with the character, you know. So like, I think it was a really good jumping on point for me as someone who doesn't really have a relationship to Wonder Woman.
And that's, I agree with that. I think it is a great jumping on point. But like, and I think you know, Sean might feel the same way about this. I didn't need to jump on.
I hear that. I was just so enraptured by it, man. You know, it's like the story itself I thought was great. I mean, the art alone was enough for me to be interested in it just because I thought it was so well done. But the story itself, I just thought it was really well executed. Like, I felt like I got a really good sense of, like, who Diana is and what her values are and, you know, what the culture of Themyscira is like. It was like I got just enough of everything to be like, I want more of this. I'm really interested in this. And it's fine if this is all I ever get, but I would be so down to do more. So, you know?
When I read this when it came out, which I believe was a little over a year ago.
2 years ago? Yeah.
And I, at that point, hadn't really read anything Wonder Woman. Like, I'd seen her in other books, but I hadn't gone towards reading anything solo Wonder Woman at that point.
Right.
But because I'm a year removed from that, and I've read so much Wonder Woman since then, I can't really talk about the new reader experience. That's why you, having read this just now, Pete, is so valuable. And
I read it last night.
I want to ask you, with no Wonder Woman experience before, you mentioned you got an idea of her values. What is Wonder Woman's value system to you, based on this book?
Okay, because I want to say, like, I think we're going to have a conversation about that later. I don't think Wonder Woman's value system is well defined, and I made that argument with Phil off mic yesterday. So I'd love to talk about that more. But I don't know. I mean, I got the feeling that what I liked about the Earth One interpretation was I really understood the relationship between her and her mother. You know, that, like, she wants to be her own person and that she was created with a future for her. And I think that speaks to what Phil was saying that Grant was trying to accomplish with this book about women. That I think that women are generally treated that way. You know, that they're born to be something, you know, to be wives or mothers or whatever it is. Like, they have so much pushed on them of what they're supposed to be and who they're supposed to be and what their role is supposed to be. And I love that Diana challenged that, you know, that she wanted more for herself. She wanted to be her own person. She wanted to learn the horrors of man's world on her own terms, not, you know, just be kept this, like, to borrow from her own dialogue, this perpetual princess in her mother's paradise, you know? And I respected that. I resonated with that. And I think seeing her, you know, have to come to the man's world and, like, have to struggle with that dichotomy of, you know, like, coming back to Themyscira and having all of them criticize her for having makeup on her face and stuff like that. Like, that felt like a very modern feminist issue to me, right? That, like, there's, like, Wonder Woman putting makeup on doesn't make her less of a woman or less of a feminist or more of a woman or, you know, whatever. Like, feminism is about being your own person. You know, it's about not having your gender have to define you and letting your gender, like, mean for you whatever you want it to mean. And I think, like, that's awesome. You know, like, and maybe that doesn't speak to what Wonder Woman's core values are as a character in terms of, like, does she kill, does she not kill, does she this, does she that? But I think it spoke to what I think she's supposed to represent as, like, a feminist icon. And I've never really I've read things that told me that she was that. I've never felt that before. And I felt that reading this.
That's a really great point, and I think that's probably what Grant's goal was with this story, more than getting into all that other stuff, because there is no Batman here. There's no Superman, you know? This is just her story and her origin.
Yeah, there's no men for her to bounce off of.
Except Steve, but she doesn't even speak English, you know?
And Steve is, like, barely even a character, and that's good. You know, like, shit, what's her name?
Candy. Etta Candy.
Beth.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Beth,
Candy.
Beth that's her name?
Her name is Beth Candy, but her nickname is
Oh,
Etta.
okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, because I know she's, like, Wonder Woman's roommate or something in the real comics, right?
They have a long, storied relationship.
Okay. She's, like, her best human friend.
Yeah.
She's, like, her Jimmy Olsen or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool how they utilized her as well to, like, you know, like, she had that one line where she said, like, poor Steve Trevor was just an excuse for her to leave this place. You know, and it's like, I like that, from what I understood, Steve Trevor was always kind of that like catalyst point for her leaving Themyscira because she falls in love with him and whatever and all this shit. And I like that they made it not about him. That he was just an excuse for her to explore what were clearly already feelings of not being satisfied. You know, of feeling that there was more for her.
I'm glad you were able to extrapolate all that from my book.
Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, bad Grant. So, unless we've got more to say about Earth 1, I'd like to move into The Circle because I really think there's a lot of great overlap between these books that makes it easy to have a full conversation when we've talked about them both.
Sure.
I do just have one question that, I don't know, I could be reading into a little bit.
Is this question addressed to me?
No, not remotely. What does it mean, do you think, that Steve is a black man in this interpretation? And I would also like to point out that when she first finds him in the cave or whatever, she straight up like grabs him between the legs and asks if he's a man.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
Like, to me, that comes across as very problematic.
I mean, it is
because. Okay.
Well, why is
all right?
Though?
Well, I mean, she.
This is go on.
She's depicted. Could we agree she's depicted fairly white?
Yeah.
Or would we say
a lot of people
more
online
Greek,
a lot of people online said she looked like Sasha Grey, the porn star.
There's somebody here I'm seeing, but I can't place that. It does speak of like white privilege, I guess, over like male bodies.
All right.
Does that?
All right. See, here's the thing.
Or am I reading into that?
In this book, we don't know her actual age, but she's obviously very young, and she's never seen a man before in her life. My reading of this, I like none of that even entered my brain. I was just like, okay, well, she doesn't know what goes on with men. She's immediately curious. I mean, she's probably like, you know, horny and wants to know what this is about. You know, like that was my immediate interpretation.
And they're like a hyper-sexualized society.
Yeah, like sex is very loose with them, obviously.
It's open.
Yeah, it's open.
You know, like we see in that festival, in the Festival of Diana, that like they're all having sex. Like, you know, it's like they're having an orgy and the queen's watching. You know, so I don't think that they are. I didn't get that interpretation either. Yeah, I think it was just her being curious and forward sexually because it's not weird. You know, intimacy is very open in their culture.
And then to address his blackness, I actually think, aside from the fact that, you know, Grant is telling his own story and he's concerned with diversity and stuff like that, I think that Steve being black is really interesting because, you know, follow me here. So the way that you would typically represent the quote-unquote world of men is with an affluent and powerful white guy. And I think that presenting Steve as a black person in the comic is sort of separating him from that in an immediate sense that, like, he's not like that, you know, like.
And he even makes that comparison himself.
Right. The first man we see is Hercules. He's a big, powerful white dude, hyper masculine. The next one we see is Steve, a black dude in peril, you know? And I think that that's really important to the story that Grant is kind of trying to tell. And I really appreciated that. I appreciated it because not only is it a black guy being shown in a state of weakness, obviously he's a strong guy, but he's just been through some stuff. I liked it because, like, hey, he's vulnerable, you know? And she picks him up and she helps him. I really, really like to see that.
She rescues him.
Yeah, it's always
twice.
The opposite. It's like a black guy dominating a white woman or being so masculine that he's over her, right? Like that imagery that we've seen so much. I loved the swap. That's even more powerful with him being black, I thought.
Well, I know Morrison talked about I think there's a lot of bondage and stuff, and having a black guy, like the imagery of chains, like the whole the whole metaphor of like slavery is, I think, like a big reason for why they made Steve Trevor black to kind of juxtapose it with Diana's trial.
That makes a lot of sense too. Definitely. So let's dive into the Circle because again, I think that's a really important book to talk about. So both books really focus on I don't know why I can't remember her name. Like Hippolyta, right?
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Both books focus a lot on Wonder Woman's relationship with her mother Hippolyta. The Circle is another sort of origin story because it talks about the birth of Wonder Woman. Both books go into that to some degree. The Circle's interesting because it presents the birth of Wonder Woman as like a really negative thing in Themyscira, and I loved that. I never read Gail Simone's run. Like I never really touched it until I read this first story, which was rather recently, and I wasn't sure what to expect because it dealt with Nazis, right? Like the core of this, well, the big fight of this story is like Gorilla Grodd has these apes, right? And then there are these Nazis all fighting in Themyscira, which is like women-only land, right? And it's just this weird, crazy juxtaposition. But underneath all of that is, at its core, is an origin story about Wonder Woman and how her sort of birth is viewed as this amazing like revelation for their culture, but also this terrifying thing because these women can't have kids. And they desperately wanted that, and they felt like Hippolyta choosing to have this child or to create this child. Sorry, go ahead, Pete.
I was gonna say, just to be fair, they only means the compass.
I don't think so because
The Circle, if you will.
The Circle, right?
I didn't get that impression because they went and visited. I can't remember the woman's name, but she wanted a child, and she had this clay child
right.
that they thought was real,
Sure,
but
yeah,
wasn't.
yeah.
And
Yeah, no, it says somewhere in there that the Amazons hadn't had a birth in hundreds of years.
Well, ever, yeah, because like ever since they went to Themyscira, they became they like said they were like a barren race or something
right,
like that.
yeah, that was the point that I was making, that like they can't have kids. So the Circle, those four women who are basically Hippolyta's like personal guard, her royal guard, they felt like having this child that could cause chaos.
No, like I know. I mean, and maybe this is just my interpretation. If you guys disagree, I'd love to have a discourse with you about it. But my interpretation was that we were meant to believe that, they feared that that's what would happen. But we know that's not what happened. Even Hippolyta says it at the end of the book, that she became the daughter of all of Themyscira, and that it was really just the four of them because they were jealous.
Well, in the scene when Diana's born, everyone's celebrating, and they're like, "What are we gonna name her?" And she's like, "She's Diana of Themyscira."
And they say like she's all of our daughter, and
Yeah.
and like she makes a point that while they were in prison, that's how she was raised, and she didn't end their culture, she saved it, and all this, that, and the other. I took it to mean that like the Circle was jealous because, as Hippolyta says, when she's on that funeral pyre, she chose them because they loved her the most, and I think they were jealous that a daughter would take her love.
It was that, and it was also that they were afraid that Themyscira would turn on Hippolyta in jealousy.
Oh, I know. I personally took that to be that they were just justifying their actions because they were the ones that felt that way.
And that's what it was.
This whole conversation is happening because I thought you were saying that only the Circle were unable to have kids. That's what I thought you were saying.
No. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was saying that they're the only ones who cared. Who had jealousy in their hearts.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That was really interesting as well because the leader, she wanted a kid. That was another piece of it too.
That moment when she's like, "You could have been mine."
Yeah,
it was never about her. It was all about you.
Right.
It was all about you.
So again, I'm going to address this to Pete because Pete, you're the newest reader of Wonder Woman. I think this book probably
second Wonder Woman story I ever read.
Right. This book probably gives you a better idea of Wonder Woman's values than
for sure.
Earth One did. So what did you get from this?
So what I liked about this was the idea of... So So I know we talked about how we're going to compare Wonder Woman to the Trinity. I'd like to start doing that now in the context of this.
Go for it, dude.
What I took away from this was the idea that actually makes me like Wonder Woman a lot more than Superman or Batman. Because Wonder Woman's a real person. You know, like I love Superman because I think Superman is an ideal that people should aspire to. You know, I don't think anyone should want to be like Batman. But Wonder Woman, she's a realist. You know, like I think she is merciful. She is compassionate. She, shows that she is willing to put out a hand instead of a fist first. But she's also not above acting, like doing what is necessary, right? Like, and I think that is interesting because I think that makes her a way more dynamic character. That she doesn't seem, anyway, based on my limited experience with her, she doesn't seem as rigid as Superman or Batman. You know, that like she gives Gorilla Grodd's army a chance to submit and to not, to walk away from the fight, because she sees that the conclusion of this is they kill me or I kill them, or I find another way. But then when it comes to the time that there are literal Nazis on the shore of her home trying to kill her mother, she kills a bunch of them. She blows up a tank and we see men in the explosion, like they're dead, So like, I think that's really interesting. She's a way more dynamic character, I think, just because like, she is merciful. She is, trying to be a bastion of peace, but she's also a warrior and she's addicted to it on some level. She loves to fight. She loves, I think it's interesting that she has that fight within her. And like, this was like, I got in a conversation with Phil where I feel like there are those two distinct interpretations of her, but this book kind of seemed to show them both existing peacefully. And I thought that was really cool.
Phil?
They never had to be mutually exclusive. I mean, that's just the nature of interpretation, right? But, I mean, it's funny that this book came out. I didn't realize it when we were talking about it, Sean. We were trying to select books for these two Let's Read books or whatever. But I had read this book when it came out, and I have the singles of it. But at the time, I wasn't super familiar with Talent because I was younger, But going back to read this, I was like, oh, I remember this. And this came after, like, I think it was Amazon's Attack or something. And that was not good in my mind. And so to follow up that with Gail Simone's run, like, that was a nice change of pace. And yeah, I mean, Gail Simone, definitely. It's funny because she had been lobbying, I believe, for a little while to write a Wonder Woman book at the time.
It's ridiculous. I'm reacting like that because it's ridiculous that she would have to lobby to write Wonder Woman. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, why is that not obvious?
And it wasn't just her. I mean, there were a lot of people who were like, Gail Simone is one of the best writers in the industry. She's, a very important woman in the comic book industry at a time where it was even more of a boys' club than it is now, and it still is a boys' club. So like the fact that marriage finally happened was important, obviously, but this book is so comics where Nazis fight gorillas.
Sentient and super intelligent gorillas, I might add.
Don't call Nazis super intelligent. Hi-yo!
Don't insult gorillas by comparing them to Nazis. They are noble and beautiful creatures.
The scene with Captain Nazi in this with Wonder Woman and the Lasso of Truth is one of the best parts of the book, actually.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that was another thing, right? Like, I love that because that, to me, sold me on who Wonder Woman is. That moment of, like, I feel pity, even for him. And it's like, Captain Nazi's literally a Nazi superhero, and Wonder Woman can still find compassion.
And one thing I like that Wonder Woman does in this book or what Gail Simone does, rather, is that she ties in kind of the late 60s, early 70s mod spy Wonder Woman when she's Diana Prince.
Yeah, that was so cool. Like, took me back to watching the TV show.
Yeah, it was very interesting how, because this was only 4 issues. In 4 issues, she not only established what her Wonder Woman was going to be like, she told an origin story, she established Wonder Woman's life as Diana outside of being Wonder Woman, she established her relationship with her mother. There was just so much going on. These issues were so dense, but they were I thought they were really, really good.
It doesn't feel that way, though.
Right.
You know, it's like, it feels like such a brisk read, and you're just like, man, she covered a lot of ground.
I want to make one other point real quick, is that in these first 4 issues, she also expands Wonder Woman's like rogues gallery, which is consistent criticism, because a lot of people are like, when I think of Wonder Woman, I think of like, well, Cheetah, Ares, and then it gets a little dicier after that for a lot of people. And you get the Circle, and their motivations are really logical, and they're a great like antagonistic role for Wonder Woman thematically and like legitimately.
The only thing that I will say in criticism is that other than their leader, the Circle has no personality whatsoever.
That's fair.
And I don't know if they appear again later on, but they are. I mean, no, of course they don't. They're all dead. But, or at least the impression is that they're dead, or at least their leader.
No, only the leader dies. The rest of them go back to jail.
Right, yeah.
Drowns herself.
I didn't even get the impression she died.
Well, they make the.
They tell you she drowned.
They make the comment.
I assumed it was one of those. Oh, she got away. We never saw the body. We'll see her later.
I mean, maybe they do say they never found the body, but they found all the blood, and yeah.
Wonder Woman says there was too much blood, and that gave me the impression that she was dead. But maybe you're right.
It's one of those things where it's like she's probably dead, but if you wanted to bring him back, there's a thread.
Yeah. So, Kale, what did you think about this? Because you said you did enjoy this one more. So
I did, yeah, and I think because it for me it fit in with like my DC canon, you know. It did all the things that you guys described, and it did it while feeling like it belonged in the universe.
Right.
You know, you can you know, at the end of it, the Justice League is celebrating Diana's birthday.
Good old Plastic Man.
Yeah.
I had 3 pieces of cake.
Yeah. And I think that's what made it feel more at home for me. Is it added something while still being true to stuff that was already there.
Yeah, and as we continue reading for this series on Wonder Woman, you're going to find that Wonder Woman's social life is really well established by other creators, and as we move along, especially Greg Rucka. It's so sad because she is as deep a character as Batman and Superman. And I want to do more of a comparison between them in the next episode that we do on Wonder Woman. But she's as deep a character. She's as rich a character. Writers have said a lot about her. And she's had so many amazing runs. But people just don't know that because they don't take the time to read about her. And I really hope that with this movie on the horizon, more people choose to pick up her books because they're worth your time. It's absolutely correct. We read 2 books for this episode, right? And Pete's a fan now. You know, yeah, that's all it took.
I'm in. Like, I like Wonder Woman now. Like, those were, like, or at least I can like Wonder Woman.
Right. And I've been reading Greg Rucka's original run and then his current run in the Rebirth era DC, and that's in addition to reading like her piece of Final Crisis and her piece of Identity Crisis and Infinite Crisis, and seeing her in those events, and I am absolutely in love with this character. I can't get enough Wonder Woman. So like there isn't a reason not to try, not to give it a shot.
The one thing is, we were talking about this yesterday off mic. I really hope that this movie is great, and I hope it nails Diana's character so that it sets that standard that we're talking about, so that there is the definitive Wonder Woman that people can connect with. Because I really think that's the problem. I really think that the fact that I don't think it's that Wonder Woman's a less good character or that there are not good runs about her. I mean, we just, I've read 2 books that have proven that that's not the case, right? But I think that the problem is that, like, people just don't connect with her in the same way they do with Batman and Superman, and I don't think it's because she's a woman. I don't think that's the problem.
Kevin Smith was talking about when his daughter was getting into comic books, and like he was explaining the origin stories of the big 3. And when he got to Wonder Woman, Like, he said he saw the light in her daughter's eyes go out, and she's like, "Oh, she's made from clay." Oh, immediately for his daughter, like the emotional resonance, like she couldn't relate to the origin story, like you could Batman, Superman.
It's because she's very science fiction, you know, like or science fantasy, I guess, but it's. Even though Superman comes from space, like, you have the connection to him because, like you said, he's an everyman.
Yeah, and he's like an immigrant in a lot of ways.
Yeah, or he's, you know, a small-town boy from Kansas.
Yeah.
He's whatever you need him to be.
I definitely can understand that, but at the same time, though, you know, when you're talking about definitive runs on a character, Wonder Woman has, like... This might be controversial to say, I don't know, but for my money, she might have more good stories told about her than Superman does. I don't know. Like, in terms of runs?
You
know what? That's something
Probably,
we can talk about.
Yeah.
That's something we can talk about in the next episode.
But I want to make the point that I believe that her character is well defined. I believe, like, I know who Wonder Woman is, in and out, and we're going to talk about that more. I know who this character is. People don't because they don't try, I feel. You've got to read the books, you know? And she has suffered the worst of those three from not having the most multimedia interpretations. She doesn't have, there is no, like, unless I'm missing something, there's no Wonder Woman animated show.
This is all true, but this is where... I think that, like, in terms of literature, like, the Green Lantern became the third biggest character in DC under Jeff Johns' run, and it was so popular that it inspired a movie to be made. And the movie sucked or whatever, but, like, that's how big that a very influential run had on that character and that IP. That's the thing that, like, Wonder Woman has been really missing, is like a really long, lengthy run that has had a massive influence on not like firstly the comic book reading community, but then starting to go outside of that.
That makes sense. And like we said, we're going to continue to talk about Wonder Woman for the next 2 episodes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this talk, and we'll come back for the review next week of the film, and then after that we're going to review some more of her books and talk more about her relationship to Batman and Superman, which will be addressed in some of the stuff that we'll be reading for that. Those characters will appear, and more about her, you know, her social group. You know, who does Wonder Woman trust? Who are her allies? Things like that we're going to dive a lot more into. And if you want to follow along with us, Brian Azzarello's run is one that we're going to be talking about. And we'll be talking a lot about Greg Rucka's run because I'm obsessed. So check that stuff out. And then some of her earlier stuff by Marston we'll be talking about as well. So if you want to follow along with us, do read that stuff. And
you got 2 weeks, baby.
You got 2 weeks. So jump on
Tell
board.
us what runs you really like in books.
Yeah, maybe we'll include them.
Absolutely. So you can reach out to us all over the place. iTunes, leave us that sweet 5-star rating, especially because Pete and I have done this show while we're sick. I think we deserve the pat on the back. You can reach out to us on all the social media platforms at The Comics Pals. We love to hear from you guys there. Gmail, you can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com. That's thecomicspals@gmail.com. You can leave us a random question. You can write a buy or sell to us. You can let us know what is on your poll, your hashtag pals poll, and anything else you want to tell us about, you can do so there. And YouTube, if you are watching this on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe to our channel. We really, really appreciate those subscribes. And also those shares are super important. Let other people know what we are doing. So that's it. That about wraps us up. Let's do some plugs. Pete.
Cool. Thanks again for joining us here on this episode of The Comics Pals. If you guys want some more from me, you can go check out my writing over at cbr.com. Help me pay the bills. I've got an article coming out this week about 15 times Wonder Woman has killed. So if you want to get some more of your Wonder Woman fix before the movie comes out, come check it out. And then if you want to go check out our other podcast that me and Sean do, along with Andy and Thompson, called The Video Game Pals, it will be up tomorrow on audio services and on Wednesday on YouTube. So please come check that out. And if you want to get me on social media, I'm at loud_Pete.
Awesome.
Talk to me about Wonder Woman.
Kale.
We haven't done this in a while. I'm gonna plug Letty Wilson, who's an amazing artist and writer. She's the one who made our logo and all our the little faces on our logo, as well as the Video Game Pals logo. She has a self-published webcomic that comes out. She releases a page every week of a title called Owl People. You can find her books with Panels Publishing at panelspublishing.com. It's on Comixology and Selfie. And then you can also find her on Twitter at PatchworkPerson. You find her Tumblr at lettydraws.tumblr.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TotoIntow. That's TOTOINTOW.
Phil, go for it.
You can find me on all the social media platforms. You can find me on Twitter at TOTOBINGO. you can find me at Cyborg Bebop.
Man.
And Marco, you can find him as Woe is Marco _ and Woe is Marco. I don't know why you'd want to follow him, but you could if you want to.
Yes, Marco, you were missed on this episode, and we'll have you back next week. I do want to say Chris Sabella's Short Order Crooks was a successful Kickstarter. I like to think that we might have had something to do with that. Very happy to say that
the CP bump
that worked out. And so you can get your, if you want, it's still up, I believe. I don't think it's over until 4 days from now. So you can still get involved in that if you would like to, and you can reach out to him on Twitter at xtop.
Also, I already teased it on Twitter. We're going to be in the book, so go fucking do it. Get your copies, man.
Yes, we are going to appear in that comic. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Sean Soapbox. Let's talk about wrestling and the comics, because that's what's on my mind lately. So, with that being said, well, you know, with that being said, we're the Comics Pals signing off. Take care, guys.
Bye.